also, there's been drilling activity around Greenland for 39 years. I guess it was suspended for 10 years. I'm wondering why it is generating so much controversy and excitement now.
Det hun spørger om er, hvorfor tror vi, at det at bore i Grønland nu skaber så meget furore? Der har jo været boringer i Grønland tidligere.
Jeg tror, det er på grund af ulykken i Kolt, Michigansk Kolt, som har givet udslag for, at den sikkerhedskrav og det sikkerhedsstandarder, som har gjort, at der har været en del debat om vores boringer her i løbet af sommeren, så det er nok derfra.
Yeah, and the reason is probably that we had the accident in the Gulf of Mexico, and there's been a lot of focus on safety standards since the accident in the Gulf of Mexico, and that has definitely also meant that there was a lot of interest internationally around Greenland.
What will Greenland do different to protect the ocean?
Hvad vil vi gøre anderledes i Grønland for at beskytte miljøet?
Vi har gjort det, at vi har i vores tilladelsesbetingelser sagt, at vi vil have 2 borerække samtidig, fordi at hvis det ene skulle ske ulykker på, så kan den anden komme hurtigt til med et erstatningsboring. Samtidig med har vi forlangt at benytte norske standarder i forhold til operationerne, samtidig med at vi har benyttet kanadiske risk-management-systemer, således vi har et meget højt standard i forhold til at kunne agere, hvis ulykken skulle ske i vores område.
And the things that we have done is a number of things in the regulatory system. Yeah, just to mention some of these things, we have a requirement that you use 2 drilling rigs, so that you have the capability of drilling a relief well immediately if you need to. We also have set up standards that regulate the well operations, and we have adapted the Norwegian standards, so-called NORSOK standards, that are much stricter than what you see in, for instance, the Gulf of Mexico. They're probably the strictest in the world right now. In terms of ice management, we have adapted the systems that are used on the east coast of Canada, on the Grand Banks, and they have worked very well. So all in all, and also in other fields, we have adapted very high regulatory measures in order to avoid accidents.
What is the Minister's vision for the Greenland with the oil industry?
Hvad er din vision for Grønlands udvikling, hvis vi får olie?
Det er at, selvfølgelig at få et bæredygtigt industri op at stå, således de ulike arbejdspladser og virksomhedsopbygninger og hele samfundets gavn vil være det største for det grønlandske folk. Og så vi har opereret med, at hvis det skulle komme olieindtægter her i landet, så har vi oprettet et fond, således at vi ikke som andre lande får hollandske syge, den berømte sygdom, det rent økonomisk, sådan at inflationen vil ikke kunne kontrolleres, men derfor har vi lavet dette fond, og samtidig med at vi kunne få et mere struktureret samfund, som skal opbygges via olieindtægtskilder.
Well, the aim and the vision is that this should help create a more sustainable economy and a more sustainable industry in Greenland. The aim is to make sure that the Greenlandic workforce and that the Greenlandic enterprises can participate in this development, so that we have a development that includes all of Greenland. We have also, in order to take care of the possible large revenue from taxes and royalties and so on, by law established a petroleum fund in line with the Norwegian Petroleum Fund, and that is of course in order to avoid hyperinflation, the so-called Dutch disease, but also in order to save up money for future generations. So those are some of the visions for the future.
How important is it for the health of the Inuit here, the Greenlandic Inuit social health, that they cut off some of their dependency from Denmark? Is that a factor at all?
Hvilken betydning har det for det sociale liv i Grønland og for den grønlandske befolkning at kunne frigøre sig fra bloktilskuddet fra Danmark?
Det er jo et meget omdiskuteret emne, om man vil få et bedre liv, bedre selvværd og mere nationalfølelse af den, at kunne slippe for bloktilskuddet, er meget debatteret rundt omkring her i Grønland, og det største del af den mening er, at vi hurtigst muligt skal være selvbordende, også rent økonomisk, således at vi har et selvbestemmelsesret til at kunne videreudvikle vores levestandard.
Well, it's an issue that is broadly debated here in Greenland. One of the key issues that I talked about is that it could give us a higher self-esteem, a more natural pride of being citizens in our own country, and most people probably feels that it's a good idea to get a more self-reliant economy, to get more independence from the Danish economy. That is the majority of the people who has that view.
How does the minister defend his government's decision with Inuit in Canada who are not happy at the idea of bringing oil up out of the Arctic Ocean? What does he say to them?
Han kan godt vide, hvad vores budskab er til Inuit i Canada omkring det forhold, at vi efterforsker efter olie her.
Vi gør det, fordi at vi vil have opbygget flerstrenget erhvervsstruktur, og vi vil kunne bære fremover et større forandringsprocesser på vores eget vilkår. Således at vi ikke kun har fiskeri og fangst som industri, men vi gerne opbygge olie- og mineindustri, således at vi der igen kan få et mere flerstrenget storskalaindustrier i forskellige former, således at vores fremtidige velfærd kan bære af forskellige tilbageslag af forskellige industrier.
Well, the message also to our neighbors in Canada is that we do this in order to get a more diversified society and a more diversified economy here in Greenland. We need to be able to control the way the surrounding world is changing and also the way it affects us here in Greenland. And in order to do that, we need to have more options than just relying on fisheries, because that's a very one-sided way of maintaining your economy. So we also need other large-scale industrial projects within mineral or oil and gas activities, because our future and our welfare depend on developing new business sectors. So that's the message we convey to everyone.
Is there anything different about the Inuit experience here that might explain why they're more willing to take the risk?
Man vil gerne vide, om der er noget i udviklingen i Grønland, der gør, at vi er mere villige til at tage den risiko, end hun mener er Inuit i Canada er.
Jeg ved ikke, om vi er mere villige til at tage risici i forskellige udviklingsprocesser, men jeg mener bare, at vi i Grønland er nået til den punkt, at vi er villige til at tage flere skridt til at blive et mere selvstændigt folk. Forstået på den måde, at vi både kan have et politisk struktur, der er udsprunget her fra landet, og samtidig med, at vi har et økonomi, der både kan give en politisk vægt på, at hvilken udstrækning samfundet skal udvikle sig på. Jeg tror, at befolkningen er parat til at tage skridtet. Selvfølgelig passer vi meget på vores kulturarv og livsformer. Vi er udsprunget fra fisker- og fangersamfund, og at inuitkulturen ikke derigennem bliver den taber i spillet af det meget overvågenhed fra regeringens side.
Well, we don't know whether we are actually more willing to take risks as such, but we are come to a point in the Greenlandic development where we are capable of taking independent steps ourselves, both in the political development here. We are at a level where it's natural for us to take steps ahead, and we also have a development of the economy and the social structures that makes it possible for us to do that in a controlled way. Of course, it is at the same time important that we do it in a way where we protect our original values, our original Inuit culture. We are very much related to hunting and fishing, so we have to do it in a way where we still respect the original values.
Mm-hmm. What did the minister and Kathy Dunderdale speak about? What kinds of expectations might we have of a cooperation between our two province, this country?
Jeg vil gerne vide, hvad de drøftede med Kathy Dunderdale, som var hende vicepremierministeren for Newfoundland, da hun var her, om hvilke visioner der kunne være for et samarbejde mellem Newfoundland og Grønland.
Altså, nu sådan rent vidensbasis og teknologisk og udnyttelsesmæssigt er Newfoundland 10 år mere fremme end os. Og hele den opstartsfase, man har gennemgået i Newfoundland, er meget interessant for os, for at kunne få det bedst mulige effekt for lokalsamfundet, og samtidig med at opbygge et serviceindustri ud fra et olieudnyttelse. Og i det spil er vi meget interesseret i at have et tæt samarbejdsforhold mellem Newfoundland og Grønland.
Well, in terms of knowledge and the degree of development within the oil and gas sector, Newfoundland is, of course, 10 years or more advanced than we are. Therefore, it's natural that we look to Newfoundland in order to see how we can learn from the development there, not least in how you have been able to include the follow industry, the suppliers, the national industry. How have you been able to make sure that those kind of companies were put in a situation where they could be suppliers or even participating in the oil industry? So basically, that's how we see the development or the possible cooperation. Basically, how can we learn from you? But I also think that probably you are interested in our development as well, because we are a new market, possibly.
Does he see ships coming from St. John's to Greenland? Would Scotland agree with that? That Denmark allowed St. John's to be a service base?
Ja, hun spørger, om man kunne forestille sig, at skibe kom fra Newfoundland, om Newfoundland også kan fungere som en del af servicebasisen for den grønlandske olieindustri.
Det er ikke utænkeligt. Rent geografisk er jo meget tættere på end andre steder, hvis vi skulle finde på at have et sådan en fremgangsmåde i vores proces i forskellige. Hvis olien springer ud, så er det nærliggende at have et tæt samarbejdsforhold med Newfoundland, fordi at rent geografisk tilsiger de også.
Well, it's possible. The very fact that Newfoundland and Greenland are geographically close to each other makes it very thinkable that we will work together if we have oil production here in Greenland. We'll have to wait and see, but it's a possibility because it's the same region.
How did Cairn get in first, kind of? How did that relationship between Greenland and Cairn Resources develop?
Jeg vil gerne vide, hvordan det kan være, det var Cairn, der først borede, og hvordan relationen mellem os og Cairn egentlig opstod.
Ja, det er jo næsten, må du næsten svare bedre på inden mig. Men altså, Cairn har været et selskab, der har villet handle meget hurtigt. I forhold til så mange andre olieselskaber er de jo meget progressive i deres måde at agere på. Og så har vi et rundårssystem her i landet, der gør, at vi også kan følge med i sådan hurtigt arbejdende olieselskaber. Og den forhold har gjort, at vi har kunne efter udnyttelsestilladelsesgivningen har kunne agere så hurtigt, fordi at olieselskabet har haft den vilje til at kunne agere på en sådan måde. Så ud fra det er det jo et tæt forhold, eller rettere sagt tæt samarbejdsforhold, det har gjort, at vi har kunne lave sådan et meget hurtigt kørende forløb i forhold til så mange andre olieselskabers form har Cairn Energy haft et meget progressivt arbejdsform.
Well, first of all, Cairn is a little bit different than many other companies in that they focus a lot when they work in different areas. They are more progressive in the way that they typically point out an area where they focus on. And earlier it was in India where they have had a lot of success in finding and developing oil fields. And now they have through a number of years worked on putting Greenland into a position where that is the focal point of their international strategy right now. Also, the Minister points to that it's very important that from an authority point of view, we have what you call a one-door system or a one-stop-shop authority, which means that the industry only have to approach one authority, which is the Bureau of Minerals and Petroleum. And at the Bureau of Minerals and Petroleum, we handle all relations between the government and the oil industry. So when they apply for a permit to do an oil well, they do not have to go around and talk to 5 or 6 different ministries. They go to one bureau that takes care of all the authority matters and then have the contact to other industries if they need to. But the industry doesn't have to go to a lot of ministries. And that makes the whole public administration very effective, and also means that we can act probably faster than in many other places. On a longer basis, that's my own comment, why Cairn? Well, basically, back in around 2001 and 2002, we decided on a new strategy for attracting oil activities to Greenland. The government actually decided to approve a strategy, a hydrocarbon strategy, where we were going to have licensing rounds often on the west coast of Greenland. We were going to make sure that a lot of seismic data were acquired. We invited the international seismic industry to acquire data in Greenland, because that is probably the thing you need to do. You need to have data that the industry can look at in order for them to come and evaluate the hydrocarbon potential in depth. As a result of that, we have had a number of licensing rounds in the last 8-9 years. We've had it in 2002, 4, 6, 7, and 2010. We're going to have licensing rounds again in 2012 and 13 on the east coast of Greenland. So we have, through the last 8-9 years, attracted a lot of oil companies, not only Cairn. Other companies that have licenses in Greenland are companies like Exxon, Chevron, also the Danish company Dong, Husky from Canada, for instance, in Canada, have licenses here. And a lot of major companies are right now negotiating for new license blocks on the west coast of Greenland and in Baffin Bay. So it's not only Cairn. Cairn is just one of many companies, but they are acting more rapidly when they go from the phase where they acquire geophysical data like seismic data and to the phase where they drill.
I haven't spoken to the ICC yet, so I don't know what the agenda is in Ottawa. I wondered if the minister could tell me, does he think that they would be making a mistake to ask if we should drill in the Arctic? Do you think that they should perhaps be discussing how Inuit can best benefit from drilling in the Arctic?
Hun vil gerne vide omkring ICC's opkommende i Ottawa, om hun mener, det er forkert, hvis de begynder at drøfte, om man overhovedet skal bore efter olie, eller om man i højere grad også kunne fokusere på at diskutere, hvordan man kunne sikre, at Inuit, når man nu borer, får de bedst mulige fordele af udviklingen.
ICC har haft generalforsamling her i Nuuk her i løbet af sommeren, og vi selvfølgelig har diskuteret vores efterforskningstilladelser efter olie. Der fremlagde vi, jeg på regeringens vegne, hvad vores planer er over for ICC's delegeret. Og lagt op til, at vi gerne vil samarbejde med ICC om et bedre og mere struktureret høringsprocesser, for at kunne få alle vinkler, synsvinkler fra forskellige organisationer, NGO'er og andre, således at det hele høringsprocessen kan blive opdateret og komme således langt mere ud til det enkelte borger her i landet, og også at de også kan komme ud i vores nabolande og internationalt, således at processerne kan blive mere åbne og demokratiske.
ICC had their General Assembly meeting here in Nuuk in the summer of 2010, and that meeting they also discussed the drilling activities here in offshore Greenland in 2010. Ove Carl Bertelsen, our Minister on Oil and Gas, actually presented to the ICC Assembly our plans here in Greenland for oil activities. And one of the things that were put before the ICC is that we would like to cooperate even closer with the ICC and other NGO organizations in order to make sure that we have an effective and comprehensive hearing process, in order to make sure that all parts of the population are included in the process to the best possible effect, you might say.
What is his message to Inuit in other parts of the world on this issue?
Har du et særligt budskab til inuitgrupper i andre dele af verden omkring det at udvikle olie som en del af samfundet?
Jeg ved ikke, om jeg har et decideret udmelding, fordi at olien er ikke sprunget ud endnu her i vores land eller havområder. Men jeg ved, at Alaska og andre regioner er endnu et land, jeg har mange år erfaring for at leve tæt sammen med olieindustrien. Hvordan de har klaret deres måde, er det jo i ICC's regi også det, vi hører, har haft forskellige både positive og negative indvirkninger for lokalsamfundene, og vi har selvfølgelig ud fra det i Grønland haft meget fokus på at lave et lovgivning, der tilsiger et princip om en bæredygtighed, om miljømæssig forsvarlighed, og ikke mindst om, hvordan vi via royalties og andre skatteindtægter kan få et samfundsgivtigt industri op at stå, både til gavn for befolkningen og efter vores efterkommer. Men at rigdom alene ikke kan føre til et godt liv, vil vi alle sammen, men ud fra et filosofi om, at at rent politisk skal arbejdes hen imod et socialt afbalanceret samfund, der både har et stort fokus på uddannelse og socialt engagement og sundhedsengagement, således at vi kan få en veluddannet befolkning, og der kan tage vare for sig selv, og så opbygge industri i forskellige artede vinkler, således at samfundet ikke er afhængig af kommende olieindustri eller fiskeindustri. Alene at vi skal også opbygge vores mening her i samfundet.
Well, the minister doesn't have a direct message to other Inuit populations elsewhere in the world. He also wants to point to that we haven't yet found oil in commercial quantities, so there's still a bit ahead of us. Also, we know that Alaska and Canada has many years of experience on coexisting with the oil industry. ICC have pointed both to negative and positive effects for the local population as a result of that development in Alaska and Canada. And based on those experiences from Canada and Alaska, we have made sure that the legislation in Greenland have included aspects that make sure that social sustainability is an integral part of the requirements when you do oil activities. Also, we have made sure that the legislation focuses on environmental protection, and we have also made sure that a reasonable proportion of the income will go to Greenland. Of course, money alone does not make a good life. You cannot be sure that you're happy just because you have good income, but they are necessary if you want to make sure that you can develop the level of education, if you want to make sure that you have a good social system, and if you want to make sure that you can provide good health services to the population. So therefore, this development is necessary if you want to make sure that you have a well-educated population that can take care of themselves, and also if you want to have a population that can actually be the main resource when you build up a new business sector in Greenland that could make the economy of Greenland self-reliant.
Minister, pronounce your name so I make sure I pronounce it right.
Uwe Karl Bertelsen.
And your name is?
My name is Jørgen Skov Nielsen.